Now, all of the stories in the Bible and the stories in other sacred texts as well, the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, the ancient mystery religions of the Greeks, all of these stories can be interpreted or looked at in three different ways. So I'm going to talk about those ways of looking at these old tales, these stories, these myths, these parables. Now, the first way that we can look at one of these stories is what I call as an example parable. Now, an example parable, you might imagine someone telling this story, and then when they're done saying, now you go and do likewise. These are the stories that answer the question, how do I want to live my life? So in these stories, the message may be that we need to be caring and loving. Perhaps we need to be more persistent or more careful or more open. So that's the way an example parable works. How do I want to live? Go and do thou likewise. Do what the people in the story did. Now, the second way to look at a parable or a myth or a metaphor is what I call a riddle parable. And I'll have to say that I'm much indebted in these thoughts to a couple of my favorite writers, John Shelby Spong and John Dominic Crossan. And if you're interested in this kind of thing, both of those authors expand and explore these ideas. And they're the ones who gave me this model for looking at parables, different ways to look at these stories. So the second way is what I call a riddle parable. Now, in a riddle parable, the challenge is to figure out what the things in the parable mean, what they stand for. So, for example, many of us are familiar with the parable of the sower. A sower went out to sow seed, and some of the seed landed on rocky ground and sprang up, but then couldn't put down its roots. Some seed fell among weeds and was choked out. Some seed fell on the hard path and couldn't sprout at all. Some seed fell in rich, fertile soil and grew and flourished and produced. Now, as we listen to that story, we know it's not about a lesson to farmers as to what to do when they're planting seeds. We know that it all represents something else. The seed represents something, the sower means something, and of course, the important part is what the different kinds of soil mean. What kind of soil am I? Am I rocky soil that when the seed of truth or of love lands, it can start, but it can't take root? Am I the dry, hard path where seed can't sprout at all? Am I soil filled with weeds, where the goodness and the love and the light is choked out? Or am I rich, fertile soil? So that's an example of how riddle parables work. So the question with a riddle parable is, what does it mean? What does it mean? Now, of course, there's some overlap in all of these, but these are sort of a model. So the third way to look at these stories, these Bible stories, these ancient stories, is what I call a challenge parable. Now, in a challenge parable, the purpose is to challenge our regular, normal, accepted way of seeing things. It's a challenge for us to see things in a brand new way, to let go of our status quo. Because so often, the way we see things, we're so used to it that we don't even realize that we've accepted someone else's reality, someone else's truth about the way things work and the way life is. So a challenge parable challenges our view of reality and reminds us, awakens us, that there may be an entirely new way of looking at things. The question with the challenge parables is, am I not seeing all that's there to be seen? Am I limited? What's an entirely different way of looking at reality? So many of us love Rumi, as I do, and Rumi tells a story of a king who had a great and powerful falcon. Falcon is a powerful bird that can fly, spreading its wings high with incredible eyesight, see the expanse below. Well, the king's falcon had flown off and hadn't returned. So the king went hunting for his falcon. And finally, he found it. And it was in an old woman's hut, a dark, smoky, crowded hut. And the woman had clipped the falcon's wings so that it couldn't fly. And she'd placed a blindfold around its eyes so it couldn't see, and was feeding it dried crusts of bread. And she was comforting it and saying, "Stay here with me, stay here with me, you're safe here." So the king, coming upon this hut and finding his falcon, was simply appalled. And he said to his falcon, What are you doing here?" And the falcon, of course, realized that it had forgotten who it was meant to be, what its potential was. And so it agreed, let the king take it back, nurture it back to health, feed it the food it was designed to have. And once again, it could fly far, see forever, be powerful and free as it was meant to be. So that's an example of a challenge parable. What if, or to what extent, or in what ways are we like that falcon? Thinking everything's fine, when really we've forgotten who we are. So let's take those three ways of looking at a story and use them to look at the Easter story. Now, first of all, I'm not really interested in whether the Easter story is something that happened in a historical way, the way we think of history, of facts. Some people spend a lot of time arguing about that or wondering about it. And for me, that doesn't really matter. We don't argue about whether the story of the Good Samaritan really happened or whether the story of the prodigal son really happened. We know those are stories to teach us, to look at, to learn from. And I believe all the stories in the Bible, including the Easter story, or that kind of story. If people prefer to believe that it happened in a historical sense, that's fine. But I don't think that's what's important. So let's take a look at the Easter story. Now, I think most of us know this story. A passionate, compassionate, eager, far-seeing, visionary young man had a view of the world that was completely different than the view of the people of his time. He saw a world of abundance. He saw a world of freedom. He saw a world where all were equal, kings, slaves. He saw a world that worked for everyone. And that's what he taught. Over and over again, he said, the kingdom of heaven is like this. It's like that. Well, as so often happens, people in power, people in control, don't like it when people show up who threaten the status quo, who imagine something different, who want something different. And those rulers and leaders who were comfortable with the hierarchy and the power structure that existed at that time didn't want some rabble-rouser showing up and saying something different is possible, something new is possible. And so they killed him. They eliminated him in their efforts to keep things the way they were, to maintain the status quo. They said, we're simply going to get rid of this person who's trying to tell people that something else is possible. So, as the story goes, some of those who loved him, some of his followers, took his body down from the cross and laid it in a cave in the rocks. The story says it was a new tomb in the rocks that had never been used before, in a garden, a beautiful garden. And then a big stone was rolled to cover the opening to the cave. So a day or two later, some of his friends came to pay remembrance, to show their love, to be together remembering him. And when they got there, the stone was gone. And they looked inside the cave in the rocks, and it was empty. And they didn't know what had happened. So two of the people, Peter, one of the followers of Jesus, and Mary, another follower and great friend and companion of Jesus, were two of the people that were there. So Peter ran off immediately to tell the others that the tomb was empty. Mary stayed in the garden. The story says she was weeping, sad that her friend, she didn't know where they'd taken her friend's body. She saw a man there in the garden, and she thought first he might be the gardener, or he might know if someone had come and taken the body away. So she asked him, "Sir, do you know where they've taken my Lord?" The man said one word, her name, Mary. And when she heard that name, she knew it was him. And she knew that he was alive. The story goes that Jesus spent some time then with his followers, teaching and inspiring them, loving them. And after a while, he went away up into heaven. So let's look at that story from these three perspectives. So first, let's look at it as an example parable. Remember, in example parables, after the story, the person telling the story says, "Now you go and do thou likewise." So what does this story tell us about how to live? Well, several things. Many of us sometimes feel like we're in a dark cave, and this story says, remember who you are. Remember your freedom. Trust that those stones that are blocking your way out will be rolled away without much effort on your part. Be open, be ready, be willing, trust. Enjoy the beauties of nature, the garden. Celebrate life. All of those things when we look at this Easter story as an example. So next, let's look at it as a riddle parable. Like, what does it mean? What do the things in the story mean? We can look at that and see that we are every person in the story. Sometimes we're like Jesus. We feel that we've lost our freedom and our power. We feel that everything is closed off. We may experience a kind of dark night of the soul. We may feel trapped, confined, blocked. That's what the cave means. It means that experience of feeling that you don't have any freedom, that everything's against you. That's what that cave means. And what does coming out of the cave mean? That means the decision, the choice to embrace freedom, to celebrate, to come forth. The interesting contrast between Peter and Mary also means something. It's just the reminder that in the creative process, male energy, the male energy of rush and action, contrasts with the female energy of waiting, of peacefulness, of stillness, and that these two energies work together to create the new space, that both are important and necessary, and each has their place in coming together. The garden, what does it mean in the riddle parable? The garden means an absolutely new way of looking at life, as different from the life we may have known as being in that dark cave is from coming out into the sunshine and the light, the songs of birds, freedom, light, openness, possibility, a brand new way of seeing things. It's really interesting, the people who are really into studying the metaphysical significance of these stories. Every name means something, every place name means something and has a metaphysical significance. We've just touched on a few of those for you to see how this story, this Easter story, is the story of each one of us on our journeys, trying things, being with people, being alone, learning, teaching, giving, accepting what happens, being blocked maybe, feeling like we're held back, confined, and then making that transformation into newness, into a new reality, a new way of thinking. So looking at this story as a riddle parable, we also look at what happened with Jesus and Mary in the garden. This is one of my favorite parts of this story, because I sometimes imagine Spirit speaking to me when I'm feeling alone, perhaps feeling afraid, not knowing what to do. And Spirit simply speaks my name, Claire. Claire, I'm known, and I feel that comforting presence. It's what we're all waiting for. It's for Spirit to acknowledge us, to recognize us, to let us know that we're never alone. Finally, we look at this story as a challenge parable. Now, certainly, at the time of Jesus, everything Jesus did challenged the status quo. He was born into a Jewish culture bound by the old law they called the Mosaic Law, the law from the Old Testament, a strict law with so many regulations and requirements, punishments if you failed to abide by those requirements. And what he said over and over again was, no, you're no longer bound by those old rules, those old requirements, those old laws. We're in a new time now. The God of the Old Testament was a demanding, jealous, sometimes violent God. Jesus taught of a God who was like a loving Father, surrounding us, protecting us, giving generously to us whatever we needed. It was a complete challenge of the way the Jews were used to seeing things. How does this story challenge our view of reality? Sometimes we get so stuck in what we think is normal and accepted that we don't even see that we could have something completely different. And that's what this story tells us as a challenge parable. What if the world, as you accept it, as you see it, as you believe in it, is really as different from the way things are, from reality, as river water is from sweet wine, or as being blind is to seeing? So that's the challenge part of the Easter story. Can we see reality in a brand new way? Can we embrace and accept love, community, freedom, a space where we can make a difference, even a world that works for everyone? You know, sometimes I hear that, and it's beautiful, and I love the sound of it, but I wonder, how can we do that? Is that really possible? The challenges, the way people are, the violence, all of it seems so pervasive and so almost normal. It's gone on so long, and we're so used to it. This Easter story says, let go of your old views of reality. See an entirely new way of being, of thinking, and embrace it. Jesus said over and over again, there's something else, there's something new. And he encouraged us to embrace it, to celebrate it, to welcome it. So there we have it. The Easter story, a story where it doesn't matter if it actually happened or not. A story that gives us an example of how to live. A story that gives us a riddle to solve. How am I like each of these people and each event in this story? What does it mean? And of course, we can continue to go deeper and deeper as we look at it. And finally, the most important truth of the Easter story. Can we allow our view of reality to be challenged? To see it all in a brand new way, to accept the wide open possibility that Jesus taught, that Jesus showed. That's our challenge at this Easter time. As you go forward, as you go into your lives, I encourage you to take this with you. When times are hard, remind yourself, I'm just in the cave right now, and the garden is out there waiting for me. If you feel alone, remember, Spirit is there, whispering your name, loving you, embracing you. And finally, no matter what happens, no matter what you see, remember, there's a completely new way to see reality, to imagine, a way of wide open possibility with no limitations, where those God qualities we teach, freedom, joy, amazement, gratitude, are our reality, the reality in which we live and move and have our being. That's what's possible. That's what the Easter story tells us. Let's take a minute now to pray together. Remember that prayer is about what we know. It's not about asking or begging or expecting things to be different. It's about what we know. And here's what I know. I know that God is all there is, and God is love. God is energy. God is the creative force. God is connection. God is expansion and evolution, clear vision. God is miracles. God is the unexpected, adventure. Because God is all there is. This is all there is in my life. All that occurs is a gift for my awakening. Every seeming challenge, every struggle, I know is a gift. I may not be able to see it now, but I know I will. And as I know this is true for me, I know that this is true for all of us. We are God in form, made of God's stuff, that infinite energy that is in every place in the universe, spreading, expanding, flowing. This is who we are. This is the truth. And in this place of absolutely knowing the truth that I am held in love, that each one of us is held in love, I speak this word now. We open our hearts, we open our minds. We accept the message of the Easter story, the message of light, of freedom, of expansion, the knowing that things are not always what they seem, and that much, much more is possible than we can imagine. We accept this Easter message. We open our minds, knowing we will be blessed with insights, ideas, thoughts, actions to take. We know all is well, and that even death is not something to be feared or survived, but that all is well. We are provided for, we are cared for, we are loved with an infinite love. We know our community to be strong, to be flourishing, to be growing and evolving. We look forward with expectancy and joy to what's coming, to a new minister, a new phase, a new stage in this evolutionary journey of Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Las Vegas. We welcome it. We live in excitement and joy. We know our part, and we're excited to do it, to give, to share, to love, to connect. And now we give thanks. We give thanks for the amazing privilege of being alive, being on this journey of exploration, of discovery, of awakening. We give thanks that we have each other, that we stand together, supporting each other, loving each other, caring for each other in community. And now we let this go easily, freely, with grace, with ease, knowing all is well, as we say together, and so it is.